Sometimes people ask me, what is my history? And I give a codified answer, and it's a truthful one, because you always stick with the truth, because the racists always know when you're not telling the truth, because they are masters of saying things that are not true. So they always know when you're not telling the truth. You cannot fool them. So if someone asks me, what is my history? I say my history, meaning my story, is everything that ever happened before the beginning of time and since. And when I make that statement, I am telling the truth. That's something I'm sure of. That's not guessing. That's not anything that I read in a book. That's anything that I have to go and check with somebody to find out if I read the correct book. Logic tells me that. The logic that came with the universe. My history can't be anything other than that. Everything that ever happened before the beginning of time and since is my history. Now, a person might say, oh, well, now that you think about it, that's everybody's history. And your response to that is, so? Because what we're really talking about is not history. We're talking about what we're supposed to be doing this very minute. And that is producing products that should be produced, like justice. And it has nothing to do with what somebody did or didn't do 80 trillion years ago. But it has to do with you right this minute. And you don't have to look over your shoulder to try to find out what somebody else is doing, who is long since dead. You look at the problem that is presented to you, just like the people did 80 trillion years ago. They came to cross the desert sand maybe, and they saw a river, and they figure, we can't walk the water, so we have to make something that will get us from this area where the sand is to that other area where the orchard is. And that's across the water. So what can we do? So somebody says, well, we got to make something that will get us across the water. We do see some things in the water that will float. We see pieces of trees and wood. Well, maybe we can put 2 or 3 trees together. And since we see the trees float, some of them, maybe we can get across the river that way. So they made what you might call a raft. And they got across the river. Now, 8 million years later, there might not even be a river there. But you have many people who have been taught by the white supremacists, of course, many black people, oh, you have to go somewhere and find some desert sand, and then imagine that there is a river there, and then try to make a boat to get across that sand that is no longer a river. Because this is 8 million years later. And that's not logical. There's no river there. You don't need a boat. But the white supremacists have a lot of black people acting like that there is something there when that something has changed over time. You adapt to the conditions. That's the message being sent. Not everybody is born at the same time and dies at the same time and have the same problems at the same time, minute by minute, every day, wherever they happen to be. They might have variations of a problem, like the whole world might be flooded, but in some places there might be places like high ground. So you don't act like there's not high ground. You head for the high ground that's out of the water. But where there is no high ground, you might have to find something that will float. That's a different circumstance. And whatever those circumstances are, that's your culture at that moment. And it's very important to remember, in order to be what? In order to be logical, because logic came with the universe. You solve the problem that is right in front of you. Don't try to solve the problem that confronted somebody 8 million years ago. You weren't even there. You don't even know what the problems were. but you're searching for them. You don't need to search for a problem. The problem you need to solve is right in front of you. That's why you were put there, and that's why the problem was put there. That's the logical deduction and the compensatory logic.